Hello everybody and welcome back to Nintendo Week. I'm Colin McIsaac, your host, and as always I'm joined by Alex Plant.
Yay.
Ben Lemereau.
My body is ready.
And this week we're joined by Ash Paulsen. You may know Ash Paulsen from Game Explain. He is a huge Mega Man fan.
Hello there.
So yeah, we thought it would be really fun to just sort of think about what would happen if Nintendo made a Mega Man game. Capcom has been really happy to license Mega Man stuff out to Nintendo recently for Smash Bros, and they're doing a lot on the Virtual Console, and obviously Nintendo making a Mega Man game is a pretty far-fetched thing to think about, but, you know, we thought it would still be a lot of fun to just sort of think about, well, what if? So, who wants to start us off?
Well, I'll start by saying that there is no hope for me because I've already deluded myself into thinking that Sakurai's next project is Mega Man Uprising. So send help, but really there's no help that you can send because that's just one of the saddest things you can fool yourself into believing as a Mega Man fan.
He did a great job. He really put a lot of care into those trophies in Smash Bros. And into the movesets and the music. I mean, they really represented Mega Man so well.
He really got the royal treatment. I mean, as a fan, as a hardcore Mega Man fan, I could not be happier or could not have been happier with how they represented him in Smash. I mean, they really nailed it. I mean, it just, like the best thing I can say about Mega Man in Smash Brothers is that being good with him and playing him at a high level feels like you're playing an actual Mega Man game, which is the way it should feel. I love what they did with Mega Man in Smash.
Yeah, I mean, the dedication to the character and the gameplay, just the feel of playing Mega Man, has been adapted so well. So you're hoping Sakurai's working on Mega Man?
I mean,
then?
I think that would be awesome because I mean, look at what he did. Not that Mega Man is a dormant series like Kid Icarus was, but I mean, look at what he did with Kid Icarus. I mean, at least I'm only speaking for myself, but Kid Icarus Uprising was easily one of my favorite games of the last generation or the current generation, however you want to classify the 3DS. But I adore that game to death, and just based on what he did with Kid Icarus, I would love to see what Sakurai could do with Mega Man.
Yeah, for sure, it'd be really interesting. So I was sort of thinking if Nintendo took the reins on a Mega Man game, I was thinking for one it would probably be almost a reboot of the series, given how much Capcom said about how many different sub-series of Mega Man there were, and Capcom has said a lot that a lot of the reason that Mega Man is sort of resting for a little while is because there were so many different sub-series and so many different gameplay styles that they just had no idea where to go next with Mega Man, which ones to continue next, so they wanted to take a break. So I feel like, that said, the most natural step for Mega Man, whenever the next game comes out, is something that really takes to heart the classic Mega Man NES games, maybe some of the Mega Man X games, maybe incorporating some of the newer gameplay mechanics of the newer games. I admit I haven't played a whole lot of like Mega Man ZX and Mega Man Zero, and I am a big fan of like the old classic Mega Man games, so I can't contribute much in the way of bringing new mechanics from the newer games into the older ones. But Ash, maybe you have some ideas on how that kind of thing could work, or maybe even just what a reboot might look like.
I mean, I have to say I agree with you, Colin. I think that the most likely scenario for a Nintendo-developed Mega Man game is a reboot. I do feel like that it would be a classic Mega Man, reboot, and not X or Zero or anything. I mean, X, like all the offshoot series are, they're still beloved, and fans really want to see those series return. Yeah. But the classic Mega Man is what Nintendo is really most known for in terms of the Mega Man franchise. And it seems to be with between Smash Brothers and the Mega Man costumes in Yoshi's Woolly World and Mario Kart 8, that seems to be the one that they're most comfortable promoting and working with. So I do think that it would be a classic series game. While I would love to see the series continue into Mega Man 11 and beyond, it does, because the franchise is so splintered across such a large span of time and multiple consoles, it does make sense to do a reboot.
Yeah, starting fresh.
Yeah, and now whether that reboot would take the form of, straight remakes of the first, 6 games in the series, with, the same bosses, same robot masters and everything, or if it would be a complete reboot and just, new bosses, a new scenario, new everything, that's more up for debate, but I kind of feel like they would probably go the remake route sooner than anything.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, well, I don't see them, like, I see them doing a reboot in the sense like that Mega Man Powered Up was a reboot, using the same bosses and characters and things, because I don't think a total reboot would go over so well for fans.
No, that's interesting. I mean, I think I kind of imagined a reboot that sort of took the best of the original Mega Man series and put it into one game, sort of the ultimate collection of Mega Man.
Sure.
Kind of, it would have Cut Man, and it would have like Metal Man and Crash Man, But I was thinking something more along the lines of almost what Donkey Kong Country Returns was. Not so much, because that completely forgot about the Kremlings and all that. But
yeah,
it's funny that you bring that up, because I was thinking, based on what we've been saying and based on how diverse Mega Man's history has been and how many games he's had over the years, I was thinking a New Super Mario Brothers sort of game, in the sense that they're taking old content and reimagining it with more modern technology. I know New Super Mario Brothers is by no means the pinnacle of what Nintendo could be doing with their hardware. But, you know, in the sense that New Super Mario Brothers Wii, for example, brought back the Koopalings, maybe they could do a a reboot game that's kind of captures that, but in the same way that Donkey Kong Country Returns was a springboard into Tropical Freeze, then bounce off of that into newer ground. Maybe ditching the Robot Masters, for example.
Yeah, I wouldn't see Nintendo literally remaking the games with updates, but just, you know, taking kind of the formula of the classic Mega Man and maybe bringing back some of the overarching themes, you know, maybe like having Wily and the Robot Masters initially, and then just seeing how it goes with some new tweaks, or like Colin, like you said, taking elements from some of the other series like X or Zero and things like that, and just sort of infusing it to get a sort of best of experience that still feels pretty similar to the classics.
I do know, Ash, I would not like to see Sakurai touch the Yellow Devil ever again.
No, certainly not. Yeah, that's a bit of a shame that there's no stage hazard toggle in Smash, just because I want to play Wily Castle more than I do, and I don't really like Omega versions because I don't like flat featureless stages. But for Wily Castle, you kind of have to pick it because the Yellow Devil is so intrusive. But, you know, I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. I do think the remake thing or the reimagining thing is tricky because, really, they've already done it with Mega Man Powered Up. So they've already done that, and that's kind of an avenue they've already explored. So how do you explore that again without making it feel like a Mega Man Powered Up retread, right?
Well, I would only want it to be sort of like a rebirth in terms of gameplay feel, not so much in terms of, like, the bosses that you're fighting or the levels.
Sure.
You know, maybe some throwbacks, but new levels that just have a sort of a feel that reminds you of classic Mega Man. You know, somewhat like what Mega Man 9 and 10 were.
Right, but then why not just call it Mega Man 11? I mean, because in the minds of the fans, you think Cutman, Gutsman, Iceman, you think Mega Man 1. And I think, you know, creating a new Mega Man 1 without those characters might not go over so well.
Well, like what Colin was suggesting is that you would bring in elements from outside of just the core Mega Man, like from Mega Man X and other things too. So it wouldn't be so much a reboot of just Mega Man as it would be a reboot of, you know, all of the like 2D side-scrolling type Mega Man.
Right. What I was kind of imagining when I was talking about that was, Ash, I think that was a great word you used, splintered. Mega Man is so splintered. I feel like Capcom is really looking for a way to sort of reunite those different sects of Mega Man, and while each of the subseries do have like very devoted fans, I feel like Capcom is not comfortable with having those different offshoots of the Mega Man series. I think they're looking for a way to kind of reunite it, and I think depending on what kind of route they would want to go, Nintendo, you know, again, this is completely a what-if scenario, but if Nintendo were making a game like that, I could imagine it either going, Ash, the way you were saying, like a remake or something close to a remake. I could see it either going that way, or going a way that says, hey, we're going to make the best of Mega Man all in one game. This is going to be its own new thing that unites everything that Mega Man was, and then, like Alex said, that game, that engine and everything would be a springboard for follow-ups. And that would kind of become the main Mega Man series.
Yeah, I mean, I do completely agree with you in terms of Capcom's position. I mean, if I were Capcom, I would want to kind of unify everything as well, because, I mean, they're really sitting on, 6 or 7 different sub-series, a few of which have officially ended story-wise, and a few of which haven't. So
Legends.
Yeah, Legends, X, you know, ZX, Classic. I mean, so where do you go from there? It's an apt question, because, you know, how do you satisfy all those fans of all those different sub-series when development costs of gaming in general continue to rise? You know, we're not in the early 2000s, late 90s anymore. You can't just pump out 5 Mega Man games a year in 5 different series. Like, you have to really consider what you want to make before you actually make it these days. And it does, in that sense, make a lot more sense not to have a ton of different sub-series and just have the core Mega Man franchise, because, as Smash has proven, Mega Man as a character and as an icon certainly is the exact opposite of dead. People still love the character.
Oh,
People
yeah.
still want to see him around. People still want new games. I mean, the reaction to Mega Man's reveal in Smash was massive. So that alone, says that Mega Man is not dead in the minds of the fans. But definitely, where Capcom is concerned, they have to kind of rein it in a little and maybe establish a new core direction for the franchise, because we're just not in an industry anymore where we can have 7 different franchises or 7 different sub-series getting annual sequels.
Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing that with Mario too on Wii U, where only the core Mario games are really getting traction.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if they're going to be reining it in, they got to be careful not to try to consolidate everything from every Mega Man sub-series that's ever been made into this like Super Mega Man game. Because I know this was by no means a super game, but Sonic 4 tried to do that with modern Sonic conventions on top of classic Sonic, aesthetics and the classic Sonic template. And the result was this sort of monstrosity, which was, looked kind of like classic Sonic, but then it had homing attacks. So, I mean, that's just one example, but, Mega Man's even more diverse, I would say.
And nothing really felt original or fresh in it either.
Yeah, exactly. Mega Man's even more diverse, so there's even more things that they could have the tendency to kind of try to Frankenstein together.
I just want to say that I've never heard a more appropriate word for Sonic 4, to describe Sonic 4, than monstrosity. That's fantastic. That's really exactly what it is.
Well, it was also a mobile, too.
Yeah.
I mean, whose idea was that?
You can't take a game that has its roots in like a sort of arcade. That was still the era where you could say consoles were offshoots of arcades, and put that on a mobile device where input is not based on arcade sensibilities.
So we agree that Mega Man shouldn't do this for the reboot.
Definitely not.
Oh yes,
Although,
yes, definitely don't make that your mobile game, Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean, they, we already saw how, the reaction to Rockman crossover or X-over, however you want to say it, was, it was decidedly very negative, and a lot of that has to do with the game itself and how sloppily it was put together. But, if you were ever going to bring Mega Man to mobile, that's not how you do it, and you don't want to make it a platformer either.
For sure. So, I mean, something that I think is probably pretty important to address in all this is Mighty Number 9. Keiji Inafune, the original creator of Mega Man, is working on this spiritual successor.
Well, just rather, if Nintendo were to make something in the veins of a new Mega Man game, they would have to keep that in mind, that they're competing sort of against the Mega Man fan base with Mighty Number 9. So they have to make something that's Mega Man enough that it will attract the Mega Man fans, but that will also stand out and be different than Mighty Number 9.
Well, I think something. I mean, I don't mean this to criticize Mighty Number 9 in any way, but I think if Nintendo made a Mega Man revival, I think that would blow hype for Mighty Number 9 completely away, because Keiji Inafune is great, but I think the real point of Mighty Number 9, the reason that people were getting excited, rather, was that it was a spiritual successor to Mega Man. If Capcom's not going to make a good Mega Man game, then this guy will. But, if then Nintendo is making a good Mega Man game, and it's actually called Mega Man, and it's actually, if it has all the same great design ideas as Mighty Number 9 might, and as the original Mega Man games, depending on the various offshoots, all those same great design ideas, I feel like fans would kind of cast Mighty Number 9 aside and instead go for the official Mega Man game that's just as good, if not better.
I mean, I think there's two dimensions to that. There's, on the one hand, as we were talking about when we started, Nintendo has an eye for authenticity, especially when it comes to aesthetics. But on the other hand, you have, for example, New Super Mario Bros., which, while it is definitely a Super Mario Bros. Game, does not really capture very effectively the actual spirit of the classic Mario games.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're onto something there, Colin. I think it's important to remember that, people don't just miss the gameplay structure and style of Mega Man. They also miss the actual character. And I think Mighty Number 9 is going to do well. I think it's going to do fine. But based on what I've seen of it, it doesn't necessarily... I mean, it is very Mega Man-like, but it isn't exactly Mega Man. I mean, it is a little different in terms of the actual mechanics, and that's not a knock against it or praise or anything. It's an objective, it's just, it's what I've noticed about it. And I don't think Mighty Number 9 is going to end up quite scratching that Mega Man itch, regardless of how good it is. I just don't think it's going to quite, replace that kind of want for a new actual Mega Man game.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
If we're talking about having a Nintendo-made Mega Man game and maybe releasing this generation. I assume we don't want to try to think too hypothetically into the future since we have no idea what NX is going to be. But you would think that if it's going to be on Nintendo platforms, that it should make use of Nintendo-specific hardware. You've got the second screen on both 3DS and the gamepad, and then you've got 3D functionality. You've got the potential for Amiibo functionality. So I think there's a lot of cool things they could do with that in terms of gameplay as well, just to make it sort of a very Nintendo-specific Mega Man adventure that you would be able to get.
What kinds of things were you thinking about?
Well, we've seen, like, in Rayman Legends, I believe it is, where, like, the gamepad can be used for, like, a secondary help character that can, help you navigate the levels and things like that. I think that's a mechanic that could work with Mega Man.
Yeah, maybe, like, Beat. I don't know how Beat would work like a Murphy character from Rayman, but...
Yeah, or, like, Roll, maybe.
Yeah, you could...
And then I was thinking for, like, Amiibo functionality, alternate costumes, or maybe even something along the lines of what Shovel Knight did, where you're able to fight Kratos on the PlayStation
Well, something
version.
I was thinking for Amiibo functionality is actually new weapons. Because Mega Man is all about changing the weapons, absorbing weapons from other characters. Yeah,
Right.
it could do it like Shovel Knight does, where you fight a boss and then absorb their ability, like Mega Man does, or it could just maybe scan in the ability. But something like that would be really cool, where, like, with Samus you use the super missiles and Link you use, like, the hook shot or something. Giving Mega Man weapons from other Nintendo characters, I think, would be a pretty cool thing to do with Amiibo, and make this new Mega Man game really well incorporated, I think, to what Nintendo's trying to do.
I think that's an incredibly cool idea.
Yeah, I really like the adding Nintendo characters as bosses that you fight to get abilities idea. Because, after 10 or so games, there's only so many original Robot Master ideas you can come up with. And of course, there's the other series as well.
And then you could put in Samus and Rob, who are basically robots.
Yeah.
Right, well, I mean, Nintendo's other characters would bring their own movesets into the Mega Man template, which would, for Mega Man, be something new.
Right, it would be major new additions to the gameplay, which... But I think there's this really distinct way that these characters would fit into the Mega Man universe, at least well enough that it would be able to justify, like, Amiibo content. So I think that's sort of a really interesting way that they could actually play around with new gameplay ideas for Mega Man.
Yeah.
While also reaffirming it as this really, even though it's not owned by Nintendo, it's something that's really very closely associated to Nintendo's identity as a game company.
Well, and it does seem to be that way. I mean, Nintendo really has gone out of their way to kind of... Mega Man's really enjoying a fun kind of relationship with Nintendo right now, where they really heavily promote his games in the eShop, and, he's in Smash Brothers, and, I mean, I don't know, it almost seems like... And of course, this isn't actually happening, it's not purposeful, but it does almost feel like Mega Man is slowly coming to be reassociated with Nintendo as kind of like a Nintendo character, even though he's not. But he does seem to be very at home on Nintendo systems now, and Nintendo is not shy about promoting him. I mean, whoever would have thought that we would see a Mega Man costume in Mario Kart?
Right?
Or a Yoshi game. I mean, that's pretty crazy. So yeah, I mean, it definitely does seem like he's kind of having this resurgence in a way on Nintendo consoles. So,
well, it's also interesting if you look back at, like, the sales of Mega Man 9 and 10 from the WiiWare, PSN, Xbox. The vast majority of those games' sales was on WiiWare, even though, PS3 and Xbox, they were in HD, they, could do much better resolutions. The controllers were, personally, I think, better suited for a platform. I didn't really like holding the Wii remote sideways for platformers. I thought the D-pad was kind of weird. That could just be me. But either way, it's clear that the Mega Man fans and the Nintendo fans have this incredible overlap that's, I think, benefiting both Capcom and Nintendo really well when they promote him this closely with Nintendo as opposed to his own entity.
Yeah, and I mean, all other things aside, I mean, it's not a coincidence that of the three, there are only 3 third-party characters who are considered popular enough to stand alongside all the Nintendo greats, and one of them is Mega Man. I mean, Sonic, Mega Man, and Pac-Man really are the top 3 icons, non-Nintendo icons, in the industry today. Of course there was Snake and Brawl, but he's not in the new one. And really, these 3 characters are the most enduring mascots, and it's not a coincidence. I mean, I think Mega Man has a life ahead of him. It's just a matter of what form that'll take and how much Nintendo will have to do with it.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah,
that's a great way to end it, Ash. Well done.
Yeah, I guess it's a pretty positive note to end things on, huh?
Yeah, for sure. All right. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. This is the end of Nintendo Week today. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to us on iTunes or subscribe to us on YouTube at Gamnesia TV for bite-sized discussions from the show. And please head to iTunes to leave us a review. It really helps with visibility, so we greatly appreciate it, especially if you have good things to say instead of bad ones. And Ash, where can they find you?
You can find me a few places, but the most relevant to here is Game Explain. I'm one of the core Game Explain crew. So you can find us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/GameExplain. We also have a website, GameExplain.com. We'll be covering E3 en masse like everyone else. And I'm also the senior editor over at Udon Entertainment, and we produce video game art books for series like Mega Man, as we just discussed, Sonic the Hedgehog, Persona, Street Fighter, lots of cool stuff. So if you're a fan of video game art and you want to have a coffee table book full of it, Udon is the place to go.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, if you want to check out Game Explain, they have, I mean, I'm sure most of you listening already know them very well, but they have excellent analysis videos, great discussion videos. They have really great stuff, so you can definitely check them out. If you have feedback for Nintendo Week, please send it to colin@gamnesia.com. That's COLIN at gamnesia.com. And remember to send in your questions about Nintendo, about our show. We love engaging with you guys, and we read them and talk about them here on the show, so it's a great way to get involved. Again, that's colin@gamnesia.com. If you can't wait till next week for more of our stuff, you can head to Gamnesia to see more gaming news as it happens. We've got Sony, Microsoft, Indie, you name it, and even Nintendo news that we didn't have time to discuss on this week's show. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we hope you have another great week. Nintendo and Humble Bundle have teamed up to offer the Humble Nindy Bundle